Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello.
Evening.
Welcome to the first Speak Up for Our Planet talk of 2021. I do hope that you're all full of optimism. We've got vaccinations, we've got a change of team at the White House, and the first little shoots of daffodils are starting to show up through the grass. So there are lots of reasons to be cheerful.
I'll go along with that.
So just while I have all of you lovely people's very, very valuable attention, I would like to alert you to the next event in the series, which is on the 10th of February, so that's 3 weeks from now. We're holding a webinar on green investing, which is really, really important. It's important for you because you need to be sure that your money is invested in things you're happy with it to be invested in. And it's important for the planet because divesting from unethical things is a very strong message. So please, if you're already on my list of people who I keep informed about stuff, you don't need to do anything else. I will automatically tell you about it. But there are lots and lots of people here who are new to Speak Up for Our Planet, and that's fabulous, and I really, really welcome you. But if you're not on my list, then please get in touch, email me on info.gx. I'll put it up in the chat later. And then you'll get to hear about the webinar, and please pass the message on to your friends. Anybody who has a pension needs to come to the webinar. So, after all, if you don't approve of it, then you don't want to be investing in it. And you might be by mistake.
Jane, can you ask everybody to mute themselves?
I'm just about to do that. Yep. So please could everybody except Daniel please mute themselves. I can do it if you don't. How are we doing? I've got 2 screens here. It's very exciting. Okay, over to you, Daniel. Daniel, I invited because he is the man behind Dan's Refill Shop, which means that you can take your empty plastic bottles to him and they won't go into landfill. He knows a lot about plastic. And so with his talk entitled Understanding the Dilemma of Plastic, I would like to introduce you to Daniel Castle.
Thank you very much, Jane, and thank you everyone for coming. Let me add my welcome. It's a wonderful day to be doing this. Happy New Year to you all. I know that's a little bit late, but it's as soon as I could say it. And on this special day, when we're welcoming in a new president, let's hope Joe won't be biding his time when it comes to making good on his environmental promises. I can see some of you laughing. Thank you very much for that. I know I can't hear you, so I'll just assume that whenever I make a humorous remark, everyone is just chortling away in the background there. You are allowed to groan. I may have 1 or 2 dad type comments, and I'm used to that, the groaning. So first of all, I thought I'd give you a tiny bit of background to myself. I grew up in Gerrards Cross, and I now live in Chalfont St Peter, in Chalfont St Giles, but my business, the little refill store that Jane was mentioning, is in Chalfont St Peter. I've been a teacher for most of my working life, and I still do private tuition. Most of my motivation for being a environmentalist of sorts is as I am a Christian, and I feel it has been given to us to look after the planet, as our collective lives depend on it. And if we mess it up, then as we can see is happening, it tends to be the poor people and developing nations that come off far worse and are ill-equipped to deal with the problems that environmental issues cause. That's my perspective, but it's not everyone's, and everyone's entitled to their own viewpoint. But what we can't argue about is the fact that a lot of bad stuff is happening to the world, and I would like to be able to do something myself and encourage others to do something to change that if at all possible. So I've got most of my presentation will be a series of slides, so you won't have to look at me much longer, and we'll rattle through them, and at the end we'll have a chance, I hope, for some questions and answers, maybe, if you're lucky. And so as Jane said, the title is The Dilemma of Plastic, because plastic has got a very bad name, but I don't want you to think that there are any easy answers to it. It is a problem that we need to deal with, but it's also an amazing product, and that's why it's become so popular. So any alternatives need to be really viable alternatives. Okay, so let's start with my first slide. Okay, so understanding the dilemma of plastic. Roughly a few facts to start with. You may have heard them. Roughly 1 truckload of plastic per minute is dumped into the ocean. Obviously not deliberately dumped, but mostly carelessly dumped. That's over 500,000 truckloads that end up in the ocean every year. The idea of recycling plastic, which we have sort of been told is the answer, is at best a half-truth, because in fact, less than 10% of all the plastic ever made has been recycled. And we've all heard horror stories of where massive loads of plastic from the UK have been shipped to countries like Malaysia and just dumped there, causing massive environmental issues. Plastic affects the wildlife around us. In March 2019, a juvenile beaked whale was found off the Philippines. After its death, the autopsy revealed 40 kilos of plastic waste in its stomach, which must have been the cause of death. Similarly, in April 2019, this pregnant sperm whale in the picture washed up in Italy. It had ingested 22 kilos of plastic waste. You may have seen photos, horrific photos like this. This is a Laysan albatross, and the parents don't understand the difference between fish and plastic somehow. So the plastic floats in the sea. They pick it up and feed it to their chicks. It stays in the chicks' stomachs because they can't digest it, and blocks anything else, and also keeps them from feeling hungry. So they just die. Plastic, microplastics can get everywhere. These little green dots are tiny pieces of plastic. This is a zooplankton in the main part of the picture, and we can see that it hasn't actually ingested plastic. In experiments, scientists found that these plankton were less able to eat, therefore less able to develop properly and less able to reproduce, and they are the foundation of the food chain in the ocean. So if they suffer, a lot of other animals are going to suffer. We can see that all around us in our countryside, all around the world, there are animals that get affected by plastic. Their inquisitiveness, their desire for food, which is often what we find in thrown away plastic, or stuff like it smells of food, and so they investigate and find themselves stuck. Like this hedgehog. The RSPCA, only in Britain, of course, gets around 5,000 calls a year due to animals getting injured by plastic waste. This hedgehog would have smelt something tasty inside the crisp packet, and obviously its bristles prevent it from getting out again. I think it actually survived, though, this one. It was rescued. luckily. Even more alarming, perhaps, is a recent news that microplastics have been found in human placentas for the first time. Studies in Rome have shown that that several women who were studied had this going on. So really quite shocking news. It is literally everywhere. I lived in Cambodia for 2 years. I was a teacher in an international school there. In poorer countries, such as Cambodia, people do not have the resources to deal with the vast amounts of plastic waste created. And yet companies like Coca-Cola and Nestle sell them however much water and soft drinks and all sorts of other things in plastic containers, knowing that they have no infrastructure to deal with it. And what can they do apart from either just throw it in the ocean or burn it or leave it in the landscape? Very often it's burned. I saw loads of instances where people were burning plastic. You even saw cows roaming the streets or fields locally where there were huge piles of plastic waste dumped, and they would be rummaging through it, eating who knows what. Okay, so plastic is a serious issue, is something that definitely needs to be addressed because it can't keep going on the way it is. But if we don't do something about it, it will keep going on because the plastic industry wants to keep producing plastic. That's why they've been telling us, no, it's all right, you can recycle your plastic, when in fact, it's really a lot harder than that. Okay, so some of the sources of plastic waste. Some of these may be obvious, some not, but lots and lots of our clothing items contain plastic. Even items that are mostly cotton may contain a plastic label, nylon label, for example. So very, very few items of clothing would not have any plastic at all. They have different names, but still called still basically the same sort of thing that doesn't biodegrade in the environment. And microplastics, in fact, which are less than 5 millimeters in size, account for about 1/3 of all the ocean plastics, apparently. And a lot of this comes from clothing. So when you wash your clothes, the dirty water will contain lots of microplastic particles, and it will go out into the waste system, into the sewers, and they don't have systems are not fine enough to remove microplastics. So it all ends up in the ocean. Okay, here we have wrapping paper, a gift, and we can see here that there are perhaps potentially pieces of plastic. The wrapping paper very often nowadays contains plastic. It might be laminated, it might have pieces of plastic glitter, and so on. It would almost certainly contain plastic tape to stick it together, which of course is also non-biodegradable. So any wrapping paper that is thrown in the bin compromises the paper bin, the recycling paper bin. It compromises the whole lot. So you can't throw away wrapping paper unless you remove the tape, and then obviously the ribbon is plastic too. You may have heard that tea bags are made with plastic mesh, although nowadays, so even PG Tips have decided to make plastic free tea bags. So they are supposedly biodegradable, but the jury is out on how biodegradable, how effective that the new material is, but at least it's not plastic. But do look out for the packets that say biodegradable tea bags, because if it doesn't say that, then it's not, it's plastic. So you'll get plastic particles from the tea bags inside you, and if you put these out in your compost, the tea will biodegrade, but not the bag. Okay, obviously we have the crisp packet here is a metallicized plastic, but the the other source of plastic here is that they've got salt on, and 95% of sea salt these days has been found to have tiny microscopic plastic particles. Did you know that chewing gum, although it originally, when it was first invented, was made from the chicle tree, chicle gum, like the sap from the tree, nowadays all plastic is made from, all gum is made from plastic. So when it gets spat out on the pavements or whatever, that's a piece of plastic that the environment needs to deal with. So it's not only the plastic and the packaging, it's the actual gum itself. Okay, spot the difference between these cans. 1, 2, 3. Is there any difference? No, there is no difference. I used to think that only the ones with the white plasticky bit inside had plastic lining, but they all have plastic lining. In fact, even Coca-Cola bottles, tins, and any soft drink tins, they all contain plastic. And here is a point where I'm going to go to something else. If you'll bear with me, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and where is it?
Length of life, isn't it?
Control, click. Okay. Okay, hold on a sec. Oh, are you seeing the Coke can?
No.
No, okay.
Just the link.
Okay. It worked earlier. Oh yeah, that's it. Okay, see a Coke can now?
Yeah.
Sorry, there is a musical soundtrack to this, but there's no words. It's just music. Okay, just simple drain cleaner going in there, eating away the metal. The can is made of aluminium, and a secret ingredient.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
Interesting. Oh, so now we don't use tin things.
It's all right, because you know you can't cut out plastic completely 100%. It has to be dealt with. Probably most tin cans, when they get recycled, they just, I don't know what happens, they probably burn off that bit of plastic or something. But anyway, to carry on with, are you now seeing the slideshow again? Yeah. Okay, so there we go, Coke cans. Okay, even this is a book that I got recently, How to Give Up Plastic. And most books, magazines contain a certain amount of plastic. Very often it's on the cover. If it's laminated, a shiny cover indicates that it's a plasticized. Even if it feels papery, it's actually got a plastic coating on it. But this book had an apology. The publishers, Penguin, said, we realized that this book is about giving up plastic, and we tried really hard. So we didn't put a plastic laminate on the front, but we couldn't find a glue strong enough for the binding that wasn't based on plastic. So even this book on how to give up plastic contains plastic. So what can we do? And this is the big question. And I'm sure many of us are already doing something different in our lives to try and avoid plastic. But it can seem like a very big problem. And isn't it just too big of a problem to worry about? And what difference can I make? Or you might say to yourself, well, my waste is just a drop in the ocean. It doesn't really matter what I do. It's everyone else. My efforts are like trying to clear a beach of sand, one grain at a time. It might seem something like that. But if we all had that attitude, certainly nothing would get done. The problem would just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we'd suffer the consequences. What we have to do is our little bit. And if everybody does a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more, bit by bit, then there's massive differences that can be made there. So I like to think of it in these terms: refuse, not refuse. Refuse, but you could say refuse because if it's made of plastic and it's single use, then it's going to end up as refuse. It doesn't biodegrade. It's not really what you'd call disposable, even though the idea of disposable stuff is because it was cheap, and you could just throw it away and get a new one. Yeah, no problem. But what does it do to the environment? So refuse, first of all. We need to try and find ways of doing without stuff that we don't really need. And refuse, find alternatives. Reduce. So we can reduce the amount of plastics that we use, even if we can't completely cut them out. Although some people try to. I haven't mentioned one last year, not long after lockdown started, during Lent, I decided not to buy a single piece of plastic, either wrapper or something made out of plastic. So for the whole of Lent, 40 days, I decided to do that. And it was pretty tough, I have to say, but it's doable. And when you do it, I actually found it quite fun, finding alternatives, and quite satisfying. So reuse, find ways of reusing the plastic that you do buy. Oops, sorry. And please try and think of recycling as a last resort, because as we know, it very often doesn't get recycled. Okay, be informed. Oh, the other thing with recycling is it takes huge amounts of energy. And, you know, very often they're just trying to make the same thing that you're throwing away, try and make it again with using, so you've got to waste that whole thing that took effort, design and energy and time and all sorts of things to make, and yet we just throw it away. We've used it now 2 weeks, bottle's empty, or in the case of bottled water, you know, 20 seconds and the bottle's empty, throw it away. And all those resources and energy are just wasted, well, more than wasted, because they're now causing a problem for the environment. So what can we do? The first thing is be informed and recognize that alternatives, so it's a dilemma because alternatives might not be much better. There are lots of alternatives to plastic things coming up, but they might not, they invariably, they come at some sort of environmental cost as well. And it might be less, hopefully it will be less, but it might not be. So take, for example, bamboo. A lot of things, when people have an alternative to buying something made out of plastic, for example, a toothbrush, there's bamboo alternatives. But we don't want the whole world covered in bamboo forest, even though that's, you know, bamboo is a good habitat for certain creatures, and bamboo is supposed to be the most sustainable crop. But like the palm oil, if you have just one monoculture crop all over the place, then it's really bad for biodiversity. It's bad for the environment. So it clearly can't all come from bamboo. Then there's the biodegradable plastic I mentioned earlier, which is not it's not certain that it really biodegrades, and it might biodegrade under certain industrial composting situations, but in your home compost or, you know, in landfill, it probably won't, or it will take a lot longer. Maybe it's not as bad as plastic, but it still take. And also, you know, so we say the bags that the jellyfish or the turtles think of jellyfish when they're floating in the sea. A plastic bag made out of biodegradable plastic would still probably be plastic by the, you know, it doesn't break down in the sea. So we've got to, I don't want to stop you buying these alternatives, because anything's better than nothing, and we have to be moving in the right direction. Also, paper bags, they're not much of an alternative, because every paper bag is paper, and that means trees, and trees are valuable for the environment. And hopefully that paper could be used for something else. But is it better than a plastic bag? Probably. Okay. Reduce. So try not to buy plastic. If you can, think of an alternative, but hopefully that alternative will be a good one. A little imagination and forward thinking. There's so much plastic we can cut out. And as I said, trying it can be fun. So here are a few ideas. You've probably, forgive me for going over things that you probably already know about, but plastic bottles are one of the things that I find the most pointless things in the whole world, unless you live in a country where the drinking water isn't any good. But in this country, we don't really need. I know probably some people will argue with me that the water quality isn't great, but it's certainly better than in most developing nations, and it's perfectly drinkable. So it's much better to carry a water bottle with you and get it refilled. In any restaurant or shop, they're supposed to be able to serve you and let you have some tap water. Okay. All sorts of things that we can do. We can go to the shops, go into the butchers, for example, or the deli counter at the supermarket. We can bring along our own plastic containers. So being prepared, as a good Boy Scout that I was, be prepared. Use the plastic containers that you've got at home, or buy some that will last for a long time. And then when you go to the butchers or the deli or wherever, you don't have to buy the plastic packaging or the bags that they want to give you. Just stick it in your own box. Similarly, cling film, there are alternatives. There are these eco stretchy lids that fit on almost anything. You can get them in different sizes. And you can also get beeswax plate covers that can be molded around different size objects and stuff like that. We can get reusable vegetable and shopping bags like these, so we don't have to accept the bags that they hand out at the shops. And I'm surprised that they're still allowed, to be honest, to give out plastic bags at shops in any shape or form in this country. Many countries have banned plastic bags completely now. Okay, also milk. It's possible to get your milk in a bottle from the milkman, as we used to when I was a lad. And as I find many of the ideas that we are having about reducing our plastic are things that people used to do back in the day. It's like, why not do it like we used to do it, you know? Let's see. So there are decent clothing alternatives that are not made out of plastics. Hemp is one of them. Bamboo is another. There is sustainable cotton as well, and a growing number of different products to investigate. There are biodegradable wet wipes. They are a huge problem in our estuaries, apparently, because when people chuck them down the toilet thinking they're biodegradable, they don't, and they just end up making huge, like being deposited with the silt and creating huge areas of non-biodiverse semi-land. Deodorant almost always comes with plastic. So there are alternatives out there, lots of alternatives. Here's one that I like. It's salt of the earth, and it just is this block of potassium alum, I believe it is, which is, don't worry, it's not a dangerous kind. The molecules in it are too big to enter your skin. So I'm told. So it's good and it's effective. My wife tells me, so it must be. Tea. I've actually stopped using tea bags mostly altogether, and I just use a tea strainer now, or put it in a pot and and enjoy tea without any tea bags at all. And it's not much more hassle. In fact, I think it tastes better. Okay. Here's an alternative to wrapping paper. Why not just wrap your presents in a nice piece of cloth, something like that, and you could ask for it back afterwards, or you could say pass it on, use it again to the recipient. And we've got, we sell in our shop biodegradable, recycled paper tape, and it can again be recycled. Try and buy fruit without the plastic. That's impossible though nowadays, isn't it? An apple without a plastic label on it. But you are allowed to take off the plastic in the shop, and that is a sign to them that you're not happy with that situation. There's a growing number of toothpastes now that are not in plastic tubes. Even Colgate have produced a, I think it's a beechwood toothbrush. So they are realizing that there's some environmental issue with their products, and making some changes, which is good. Obviously, more needs to be made. A reusable coffee cup, compostable coffee cups, biodegradable dog poo bags, a whole set of really strong plastic tubs, all sorts of things that can be done. I could go on, but I know I don't have time. So if you do buy plastic, make sure it's not single use, and think of ways that you can keep using it. Really creative people using plastic in really creative ways I've seen, and it's just great and fun. I would love to hear of anything, any ideas that you have for reusing, or indeed anything that I've been talking about. So now's my chance to get my plug in. This is my shop, Dan's Refill Store. We are in Chalfont St Peter on the Marketplace, which is the hill going down the village, and it is in a shop called the Bread House. I'm not quite sure how many more months we'll be allowed to stay there, but hopefully we will exist around this area in some shape or form. We do have a Facebook page and a website, so you could just Google those. So planet-friendly products without the plastic. We're open Mondays and Tuesdays at the moment from 8:30 till 4:30. And here's how it works. You save your empty bottles of shampoo or conditioner, shower gel, hand wash, washing up liquid, dishwasher powder, rinse aid, laundry liquids, variety of most of the things that you would use, including really green options like white vinegar, bicarbonate of soda. You can bring in your containers, and we'll fill them up with quality alternatives to they won't be your usual brands, but they will be good quality alternatives. And I love working there, partly because the smells of all the different products that we have are so nice. But other bigger refill stores do exist. So if you don't live in Chalfont St Peter, or you're looking for food, then you can look for a zero waste shop near me, zero waste near me. Google that and you'll find a shop that sells all these kinds of things, zero waste products. You bring your own containers, and there's lots of other ideas to help you save and not use plastic. And as I said, recycling, please think of it as a last resort. It's energy intensive, and there's a strong chance that the recycling that is promised will not happen anyway. So I like to end on a bit of good news. It helps avoid a recognized medical issue called eco-anxiety. So here's a bit of good news. There is a new substance called polydiketonamine, or PDK, which is a new kind of plastic that has been invented that can be indefinitely recycled, just like glass and aluminium. Whereas nowadays, at the moment, plastic, when you recycle it, it has about 2 or 3 times that it can be effectively recycled, and then it can't be used again. for the same thing, and so it's pretty well useless after that. But they have found a way of making plastic that will be properly recyclable, and hopefully then the plastic that is made will be much more likely to get recycled. Another bit of good news, I don't like to big up Coca-Cola, but when they do something good or moving in the right direction, why not applaud that? So Coca-Cola in Scandinavia have decided to make 100% of their bottles out of 100% recycled plastic. So lots of good news around. If we're getting a bit discouraged, because it's easy to get discouraged and feel like it's too big a problem, we can't do anything about it, but we've just got to keep on going. Like David Attenborough said, if we lose hope, we just give up, and we cannot afford to do that. We've got to keep going. So pulling the plug on plastic, it's a huge task. But if we all make some lifestyle changes, it will make a massive difference. And our world can go from somewhere that looks like this to somewhere that looks like this. This is the same beach. After it had a bunch of volunteers went and cleaned it up. So there is always hope, and we can do it. So that is the end of my talk. Thank you very much for listening. You've been very patient and nice and quiet, actually. You've let me talk, which has been very good.
I've been going around muting people. Thank you ever so much, Daniel. That was really fascinating. And I'm sure that many of you, probably like me, thought that we knew all about plastic and recycling and reusing and all that kind of stuff, but have nonetheless learned a huge amount that's new.
Good.
So thank you very much indeed. Even if we can't hear you, let's all give him a big clap. And
thank you.
Please feel free to ask questions either by putting your hand up, but I have got two screens, so I might not see you very easily. The alternative is to put your questions into the chat.
Can I ask one quickly?
Sure.
Thank you. While you were talking about the plastics coming down, you still there?
Yes, I'm still there. Have I gone?
Okay.
Have I?
No, that's all right. My screen's just suddenly decided to.
Yeah, it just says Zoom.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go on if I may.
Yes, do.
While we were thinking about reducing plastics, it occurred to me that we constantly use sieves, and we can sieve things down into smaller and smaller bits.
Yeah.
Do you know if any of the recycling or sewerage plants are trying to do that so that you can filter out or sieve out all plastics?
I don't actually know. I think that's a good idea. If that were possible, my feeling is that it would just slow down the whole process of getting the water through the system quite significantly to have it but that way. But I've no idea technically, and I don't know what's going to be going on. All I do know is that it is possible to get a bag that goes in your washing machine. So you put all your washing in this bag, and then put the whole bag in the washing machine, and that bag will filter out, and it won't let any of the microplastics go through into the drain.
Oh, wow.
So that is available. We don't sell that in our shop yet, but we should. So thank you.
What do you search for, Daniel? What would you call it?
Maybe a laundry net or a laundry sieve, probably something like that. Eco eco laundry sieve or something like that.
Try Googling that. If anybody finds it, let me know and I'll put it up on our website. Gwyneth Marsh says, anyone who wants to try beeswax wraps can contact me. I don't know if you've come across those. It's an alternative to cling film that you can put on the top of a bowl.
Yeah.
And you can reuse them and clean them and all the rest of it. So Gwyneth Marsh, who keeps bees, she makes
Ah.
them and she can supply you with some. Again, if you email, I've put my email address, info.gxrotary, on the chat. So if anybody wants to contact anyone else, let me know and I'll pass on the message. Mike Boys says, what happens to plastic when you burn it?
Well,
It gets smaller and smaller, and they all go up in the air and drift down. And birds ingest them, fish ingest them.
yeah, I mean,
Dreadful.
basically it doesn't disappear. It's based on oil, isn't it? So it probably is a similar thing, a bit like burning oil, and it can cause quite serious pollution problems. There was I think it was Hugh Fernley Whittingstall did a program about a factory where plastic was being burnt, and the fumes were causing serious breathing problems for a number of people in the village that live nearby. So it's not a great thing to burn plastic. And I think there are plants in this country that claim to be able to incinerate plastic and filter out all the bad stuff. And then they use it for energy capture, so that the heat that's generated there is used for making electricity, I think.
Yeah, there's a place up near Aylesbury called EFW, Energy from Waste.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
they claim to be
They've got
able
lots
to.
of plants in the country.
Right. Okay. And so that's obviously, if it works, a great alternative to just dumping it. But I've heard that that some particles can escape, but I don't know. I haven't researched enough into it to be able to confirm one way or the other.
Another question Leslie wants to know, and I'm interested as well. What is the most popular product to get refilled in your store?
Oh, in my store, in terms of volume, I would say we sell mostly non-bio laundry liquid and fabric conditioner. Those are the two that we get through the most amount. A very popular fragrance, however, in the shampoo that we do, there's two that seem to be the most popular. One is a grapefruit and orange flavor hair shampoo, and another one is called Wild Fig and Iris, which is my favorite. So I always buy that for my wife.
There you go. Presents.
Yeah.
So next question. Oh, Leslie's been doing some researching. LaundryNet, guppyfriend.com. Stops microfibers from entering.
That's the one.
The wastewater system from washing machines. Anything which is on this chat, I will capture it and put it up on our put it out on the information. But you have to get in touch with me on the email address that I've put there if you want me to share this information with you. Obviously, otherwise I won't be able to find you. Guppy Friend washing machine bag, available from lakeland.co.uk.
Ah, that's interesting, because they're a huge plastic producer, aren't they?
So those are the only questions that are on the chat just at the moment. I'm happy for other people to ask questions. I just wanted to say, before Christmas, I went and bought some of Daniel's special sellotape, which you can recycle. And I was very proud of myself because I wrapped up all of my parcels in brown paper with that sellotape, printed by hand with a potato print. And all of my parcels were wrapped up that way. That's the good news. The bad news is they still haven't reached the people they're supposed to get to, because they were supposed to come to stay with us from France, and they didn't make it, of course. And they're still on their way.
What, still on their way from France?
To France.
Oh, the presents are going to France. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I posted them to France and they still haven't
Yeah.
arrived. So
Oh,
somewhere in the ether are a whole bunch of beautifully ecologically wrapped parcels.
they're probably waiting in a queue to get tested for COVID.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Danny, do you have any views about the volumes of water which can be used for cleaning items which we recycle? Because there is a debate whether, certainly in our case, we just put food containers which may be contaminated food in the blue bin, but there is another school of thought that you should perhaps wash it out, clean it, which then increases your water consumption, which is an environmental issue as well.
It is an issue, and I'm not sure what the answer is. I would say if they don't want you to wash it out, that to me suggests they're going to incinerate it, which may be a viable option, because I can't imagine them then going to wash it out to then be recycled. But they might have it might be more effective to do it on site and do all of the stuff in one go. That's a very interesting issue. I think water's not much of an issue for us at the moment, is it? Especially not looking out the window today. But obviously worldwide it's a massive issue, so it is a consideration. But can't
Catherine is desperate to ask a question or say something.
Okay.
Hello, Dan, is it okay if I answer that question?
Yes, of course.
As
yeah.
I did my master's research on rinsing recycling.
Okay,
rinsing
great.
Plastic, domestic rinsing of plastic. And what I found was that the recycling companies do want plastics to be rinsed.
Right.
Because there's problems with if plastic has food inside it, then the machines that are sorting the plastics may not recognize the kind of plastic it is. And it also can cause contamination, as in attract rats and other pests, which is bad for homeowners, but also in the lorries and the transfer sites as well. But generally the amount of water that's used in rinsing recycling at home is a lot less than the amount of water that's used in producing new plastic. So people shouldn't be worried about using that water. However, if you do have used water, grey water, then that is more environmentally friendly to rinse your plastics when whatever's left over in the washing up bowl.
I was just going to say, if you do it with the washing up, then you're not really using any more water, are you?
No, true.
I was always given to understand that if you put into your recycling wheelie bin an article a receptacle that has got food in it, it completely negates the whole lot of recycling that you're putting into the big lorry. That I was always told that.
That is what I've learned from interviewing the recyclers, the recycling companies, is that food is a particularly bad issue for paper and cardboard. Like a pizza box with pizza left in, that will completely degrade the paper and cardboard and it can't be recycled.
Absolutely.
In a plastic or a glass bottle or an aluminium can, they can deal with it because it is all eventually washed and then ground up. It's just that it may cause some problems en route, that if it's really full of peanut butter or something, it might be too heavy to be lifted off the conveyor belt, because they're separated with the sort of jet of air that pops along and blows certain plastics up and over into the correct bin. So they don't want it to be too heavy. And in order to decide which plastics they sort, they have an optical laser system that looks at the colour of the plastic. So if it's discoloured by food a lot, then it won't sort properly. But they do often have people sorting the plastic later on as a kind of second fail-safe. So it does get sorted eventually, but that is more expensive. So they do ask.
But if you think about it, if you encourage people not, to throw away, not bother about cleaning it up, likes of all of us here, I'm quite sure will rinse it. But there are a lot of people who might just throw a whole container away that's just full of food. You know, and unless you can educate people that it's only clean receptacles or almost clean receptacles that can be recycled.
And it's not just a matter of education, it's like caring.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you have your takeaway, and it's like, well, that's not my problem anymore. I'm just chucking it, you know. So
can't be botheredism.
yes, that's it, exactly.
I think people are more aware now they're on meters about the amount of water they're using, because as you say, they've got to have a responsible attitude for the environment, and I think that is where it's going to be quite a battle to convince people that they've got to look at the whole issue of plastics nationally, internationally, the effects of if they don't do it.
Yeah,
our kids' generations and our grandchildren's generation, which are going to be suffering.
So there's a question here: are there any e-petitions to stop plastic waste on gov.uk yet? If not, perhaps we should start one.
That sounds like a great idea, and probably quite easy to find out. Is it?
I would guess so. Yeah, we'll guess so.
So that's a great thought. And if we start one, I'll definitely. I'm sure we will all join in that.
I'm sure we'd all sign it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What else? Gwyneth points out that water is a massive issue in this area. It's true. We use more than most areas in this country. We're very, very bad about our water use.
I guess probably because we feel that it isn't an issue. people, like I just said, many people feel it's not an issue because we have a lot of rain, or it seems like we have a lot of rain. Then people are a bit careless with their usage of water.
Yeah.
But I would say that using it to clean plastic might not be a huge amount, and it's a worthy use of it. Whereas using it to create a pristine lawn might not be as worthy.
Yeah.
But
what do you think, Danny, of plastic lawns?
Oh, don't ask me. I nearly swore at you then, Richard.
We can imagine, I think.
Recycle plastic.
I mean, I just think it's such a shame, because it's not only the fact that it's more plastic, it's not necessary, and it's another bit of land that doesn't have living stuff on it. You know, it's stopping wildlife from thriving there, whereas you could have grass and flowers and whatever that's at least providing some sort of environmental benefit. But a plastic lawn,
must be a bit of a shock to a worm if it comes up under a plastic lawn.
I know. Or a bird if it tries to peck into it.
Yeah. I see a lot of birds pecking where I have a small bit of AstroTurf and I throw bird food, bird seed on it, and birds come down, peck very happily at it, and then take off, and then go to the bird feeder.
Okay.
It has its uses if you have dogs.
I'm sure it does. It's very convenient.
And it can get very hot to walk on in the summer, apparently, as well. So that is another issue.
Have I missed anybody who is wanting to ask questions or make comments? I'm looking to see if anybody's got their hand up, but
yeah, Eileen. Oh, it's not Eileen.
It's not Eileen, but he's called Eileen. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you unmute yourself, the person who's called Eileen Tanner?
I can.
That's it.
Oh, there we go.
It's Jeremy. Hello.
Hi, Jeremy.
I just checked on the government website. There are 44 petitions at the moment relating to plastic on the government website.
Oh, wow. Okay, so something.
Take your pick or sign them all.
Sign them all, yeah. Thank you.
I thought there might be some.
Well, it includes things like cigarette filters, for example.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of specific ones about particular types of plastic.
Yeah, yeah, and
Well,
VAT and all sorts. Have a look.
There's a good I don't know if you've heard of Surfers Against Sewage, SAS. They're a bunch of people that go around cleaning beaches. I think they started from surfers who were fed up with all the plastic that they were encountering in the ocean, but they set up this organization basically now trying to help with the plastic problem, and they do loads of beach cleans. And they have been involved in petitioning both government, I think, and the companies that are producing the plastic waste. And they've got something called like a shaming thing. So you take a photograph of a piece of plastic waste that you found in the environment, and you post it on, say, if it's a Coke can, Coca-Cola's social media pages and stuff. So that's another sort of protesting thing that can be done.
Going back to what you said, Danny, about the microplastics in sewers and things.
Yeah.
The effluent goes clearly down to a sewage treatment works where it is treated to a certain standard. And one of those standards is suspended solids. But the question is the problems of the water companies trying to remove those microplastics, which then go into rivers, and as you say, ultimately perhaps go into the sea.
ocean,
But also they go into the groundwater aquifers.
Right.
Where this area we draw most of our water from the groundwater aquifers. So there is a whole issue which, you know, broadens out to a whole range of issues which which it results in. So
that's right.
If we've got 44 petitions already against plastics, it shows how seriously the government is taking it. Like, not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
How many signatories does one have to get on a petition in order for it to actually come up before the House in Parliament?
100,000?
100,000? That's what I would have thought.
I think.
Once it's got 100,000, it has to go into the back pocket of the Speaker's seat, and then it has to be heard.
Okay.
So it's not speedy.
No.
Okay, listen, it's 8:30. We're having so much fun asking Daniel lots and lots and lots of questions that I think we could probably go on all night, but I did say we'd finish 8:30, so perhaps we better do that. So again, thanks ever so much, Daniel. And
It's been a great pleasure.
If anybody would like to know more about other talks, I'm hoping I'm going to be able to just share my screen here. PowerPoint. There we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, that is the email address to write to if you would like me to put you on my list for you to know about future talks, to know where the website is, to be able to see all the information that I've captured from the chat or anything else. That's the email address that I use. So it's been great. Thank you very much, Daniel. I shall be visiting your store again soon when I've got some.
Looking forward to seeing you. And anyone that wants to, if you're local, don't come all the way from Scotland or even further afield. But if you're local, we'd love to see you. And if you mention this chat, you will get a bar of chocolate.
Oh, wow, that's an incentive.
A bar of fair trade chocolate called Tony's Chocolonely, which is amazing chocolate and very fair trade.
It is amazing, and he's also got lots of other things in his shop, like special sellotape and all these lovely eco-friendly things.
Can I just say,
Edwina's got her hand up. One last comment.
Just to say that I have been using the shampoos and everything that Danny mentioned, and quite a few other little bits. And the shampoos haven't got parabens in or anything. So if you're really keen about having high quality shampoos, conditioners, and all the other things, it's well worth a visit. Well worth a visit. So there you go. Well done, Danny.
Thank you, Edwina. You get 2 bars of chocolate when you come next.
I've actually, yes, and I know the chocolate as well. But thank you, Danny, for doing that. Bless you.
Thank you very much indeed. And I hope to see a lot of you later on another occasion.
Thank you for